Hi, everybody. This is Lee McQueen, and I'm talking about the remaining Berniecrats that are down ballot. I've spoken of the Berniecrats earlier this spring and summer. I'm talking about the down ballot Berniecrats who endorsed Bernie Sanders during their campaign. They've spoken of him, they've indicated support for the Bernie Sanders platform, and they are listed out by state at a website called Berniecrats.net. And I'll leave that link in the description and kind of give a quick rundown of the states that remain. We've been voting all spring during the presidential primary for Berniecrats. And then all summer, even after the presidential primaries ended, there were still states with down ballot candidates on the ballot. Now we're in the home stretch for the down ballot voting. And if you are a Berniecrat, you should feel really happy and proud of yourself, and of course of Bernie Sanders too, for the Bernie effect being seen on down ballot candidates. They have been winning. There's been some losses, but there have been quite a few wins in the progressive Bernie Sanders Berniecrats column, state by state. These are candidates that Bernie Sanders either endorsed in return or that just lean towards Bernie Sanders. They've been winning their races. So the next state up for down ballot voting is Arizona, the famous Arizona that had so many difficulties earlier this year. That voting system and process was a lightning rod of controversy because of discrepancies between the voting exit polling, the early calls, and then the suppression that occurred. Hopefully, the Secretary of State has learned to be on the ball and to treat the voters of that state with respect. Here's a chance to make up for the bad that happened earlier this year. And to the voters, I really hope you don't get discouraged, because the minute you stop, the minute you quit, then it is over. I would say even if things didn't go the way they should have gone earlier this year when Arizona voted in the presidential primary, to still find your way back to the polls and don't let anyone take your voice away. There's Berniecrats waiting. They are still running, even though things are tough. There's challenges. There's bad people who want to subvert the rules and have, their own interpretations of what law and order is. I would say if the candidates that are Bernie leaning, that are progressive, that are going through their campaigns trying to win over voter support, if they're still in the race, why not meet them halfway and go back to the polls and make your strongest effort? And of course, if anything wrong happens, trustvote.org is where you go to report on things like that. But hopefully the Secretary of State is on the ball in Arizona. In Arizona, there are actually 13 Berniecrats on the ballot. Some are in races where there's multiple Berniecrats running for the same office. May the best Berniecrat win, and hopefully it is a Berniecrat. And this is why it's very important for you to actually go to the website and print out the list of Berniecrats that are on the website. Don't just go to the polls and vote D, 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 D. As we have all learned by now, if we haven't learned anything at all this year, not all Democrats are the same. Not all Democrats are equal. You've got some that lean this way. You've got some that lean this way. If you are Bernie Sanders leaning, if you support Bernie Sanders type platform, if you are progressive, then you want the Berniecrats on this list. You need to know their names. You want them to go to the general election. So in Arizona, there are 13 Berniecrats on the ballot. You've got everything from U.S. Senate candidates. You've got U.S. House of Representative candidates. One in particular is Raul Grijalva. He's an incumbent in the 3rd District. He endorsed for Bernie Sanders, and I believe he went on to endorse Hillary Clinton but hopefully his mind is still progressive and Bernie leaning, despite the political reality he faced at the Democratic National Convention. So there's U.S. House and U.S. Senate candidates in Arizona. There's also state Senate and state representatives on the ballot who are Bernie leaning. You need to know their names, not just their party affiliation. You need their actual names, which is why you need to go to Berniecrats.net, print out this list or write them down and take them into the voting box with you. There's also a county recorder. He's running for Maricopa County. He's a Berniecrat, and so definitely want to know who is on this list and what position they're running for, so you can check that box. One of the more heated races is Florida. Oh, and Arizona is voting August 30th. So the end of this month, about 2 more weeks, Arizona is going back to the polls. And in Florida, the same thing is going to happen. Florida votes for down ballot candidates on August 30th. And there are 14 Berniecrats on the Florida ballot. There's one that we've all heard of. His name is Tim Canova. He's running against the famous or infamous Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And so it's looking like Tim Canova is who Bernie Sanders endorsed. And then Tim Canova endorsed Bernie Sanders. But this is also a state, Florida is also a state where on August 30th, there are multiple Berniecrats who are running for the same office. For instance, you've got Alan Grayson, Sean Guthrie. They are both running for U.S. Senate. You can just go to this website and find out more information about them and just pick the one that, seems the most like what you want to vote for. They're both Berniecrats. And you just have to decide which one is more your perspective. There's also people running for U.S. House of Representatives in this race. Tim Canova is one. And then also there's other districts who have U.S. House of Representatives who are Bernie leaning on the ballot. You got even mayors. Mayor of Miami-Dade County. He's a Berniecrat. His name is V.J. Shazar. City Council. So, the U.S. House, U.S. Senate, and then on down to City Council. You want to make sure that you know their names on August 30th in Florida. The next state up for voting is Massachusetts. Massachusetts is going to be voting on September 8th. And actually, after Arizona and Florida on August 30th, the rest of the down ballot races are going to be in New England. So if you're in New England, look sharp. Massachusetts is going to be voting on down ballot on September 8th. There are 5 Berniecrats on the ballot who are Bernie leaning in Massachusetts. They are progressives. They support a Bernie type platform, maybe Elizabeth Warren type platform, maybe even as far as a Jill Stein type platform. So there's a center of progressiveness in Massachusetts. But again, Jill Stein has mentioned that she actually had trouble with the Democrats and the Massachusetts legislator who voted down her voting reform initiative that she put on the ballot. They challenged that. So again, not all Democrats are created equal. And so that's why I recommend that you do go to this Berniecrats list and see who's on the ballot. You've got Ronaldo Delgado, Jaime Eldridge, Pat Jalen, Stephen Bettel, Denise Provost. And then running for everything from, state senate, and then state representative. So all politics is local, and just so you do not ever underestimate the state senate races, the local races, Bernie Sanders was a mayor. He was a down ballot candidate. Look where he is now. He's leading in the Senate. He's got influence in the Senate. He's bringing more progressives to follow him in the Senate, and he likely won the Democratic primary. But let's go on from that. Also, Barack Obama. He was a state senator in Illinois. Look where he is now, leader of the free world. So these down ballot candidates you never know where they're going to end up. They may start out one place and end up way up here. And so it's good to make sure that we send the right people into office. If we want progressives leading at the top of the ticket, we've got to start them off at the bottom of the ticket and get them where they need to go with our votes, with our fundraising, with our campaigning, with our spreading the word. Okay, and so the last four remaining candidates are going to be in Delaware. Delaware is going to be voting on September 13th. Rhode Island is going to be voting on September 13th. New Hampshire is going to be voting on September 13th. And New York is going to be voting on September 13th. So yes, the last few remaining states are going to be in the New England area. And so Delaware is the next one up. Delaware has got 2 Berniecrats on the ballot. And let's see if I can find their names. One is going for the U.S. House of Representatives at large, and the other is going for the position of state representative. And so there's 2 of them. Their websites are here. There's links here. You can just follow them and see who they are and learn their names, and then send them on to the general election where they belong. The next state after that is Rhode Island. Rhode Island has 4 Berniecrats up for voting, and I'm scrolling down as fast as I can to find Rhode Island. Let's see, there's Pennsylvania, Rhode Island. Okay. So, yes, there's 4, and it's September 13th. State Senate, State Representative, State Senate, and State Representative. There's 1 incumbent. No, there's 2 incumbents on this list. Jim Sheehan and Aaron Regenberg. And then there's 2 newcomers. They're all in different districts. They're not running against each other. So you can find out their names by going to Berniecratts.net if you're in Rhode Island. After that is New Hampshire. New Hampshire is also September 13th. And let's see, I'm scrolling back up this list. And there are 4 Berniecrats running for office in New Hampshire. For U.S. House of Representatives, State Senate, State Representative, and State Representative, all in different districts, so they're not running against each other. But yes, so there's U.S. House level and then State Representative level. So we don't want to underestimate anyone. We want progressives at every stage of the political spectrum if we can manage it. The next and last on this list is New York. New York has been doing a lot of voting this year. They went to the polls to vote for the president. They went to the polls to vote for U.S. House and U.S. Senate. And then they also went back to the polls to vote, at the state level, I guess. And then now it's the local, municipal, county level. So New York's going back to the polls September 13th. And then New York's going back to the polls on November 8th. So New York's going to be doing a lot of voting. This is the very last down ballot voting that's going to occur. In the primary. There are 7 Berniecrats remaining on this list. The U.S. representatives, the U.S. senators, they've been voted for. Zephyr Teachout is going on. She won her primary already. She's going on to the general, so good job on that. We've got Ali Najimi for city council, Chris Higgins, county legislator, Leah Golby, city council, and a few others who are running for a state senate or state representative, and then the municipal election. So there's still more voting going on in New York. If you want to know their names, you can go to Berniecratts.net, and that way you know exactly who you want to vote for in the primary and who you want to send on to the general election. And so again, we're starting out in Arizona and Florida for August 30th, and then Massachusetts on September 8th, and then on September 13th, Delaware, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, New York. So New England's going to be pretty busy Also, Jill Stein is going to be finishing up her ballot access campaign in the New York area. I think Rhode Island is the very last ballot access campaign. And then the debates, the presidential debates, start after that. So lots of action. It's not over by any means. If you're progressive and you think this whole thing ended with Bernie Sanders versus Hillary Clinton, it's not over. There's still more action forthcoming. Your votes are still needed. Your attention, your time, and your energy are still needed. Your resources, if you have any to spare, are needed to help with campaigning. So it's good to stay engaged. And the thing is, if you don't stay engaged with progressive races and progressive candidates who are campaigning on progressive issues, well, uh, someone else is going to stay engaged, and then their candidates are going to win. So we need every vote still. So you dust yourself off, you pick yourself up, and go back to the polls, and make sure you have your voter ID.